Sure thing. Thanks for the introduction, George, and thanks for reading what I sent over about Texas A&M University. I'm sure there might be some spirited discussion about that about my opinion. But again, and also just want to clarify that I'm deputy executive director. My boss is the executive director, Russ Poppy. So just wanted to make sure that people didn't think I got a promotion. But thanks for having me here today. Thanks for allowing me to tell y'all what we have going on in the Cypress Creek and Little Cypress Creek watershed. I see some questions coming in already, which is great. Go ahead and send me all the questions as I speak, and I'll do my best to answer them as we go along. And but first, before we get to all that, I do want to go ahead and share my screen and show you some information that the Flood Control District has made available that I think your group may be interested in. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick, and it should pop on over where you see this is the homepage for the Harris County Flood Control District. So this is we recently updated it. So if you've been to our website before, it does look a little bit different. We had some feedback from folks in the community about some changes they'd like to see. So we tried to keep it fresh and updated. And if you want to know what's going on in the Cypress Creek area, we have all of our information arranged by watershed. And we like to have people realize what watershed they live in, because every watershed in Harris County has a unique personality, unique drainage issues, unique flooding problems. And so our watersheds are how we group all of our different projects and how we look at different strategies to reduce flooding in different parts of the county. So they're in alphabetical order. You can click on Cypress Creek, and I know we have some folks here in Little Cypress Creek. So you can just click on either one of those, and a web page will open up. But before we go to that, I want to just show you a couple resources that we have available that we get asked a lot of questions about. On our main page, if you scroll down, you'll see our county projects overview map. And this is an interactive map that's broken into two sections: capital improvement projects and maintenance projects. The purple symbols, and you can zoom in and click on any of these symbols that you're interested in, and it'll tell you what the project is and a little bit more about it. And this gets updated continuously as the Flood Control District works on new projects and finishes projects that we're already working on. You can add different data such as the Harris County precincts, Texas House districts, Texas Senate districts, United States Representative districts, and then the social vulnerability index. And so you can click and turn that on and off if it suits your need. And then if you want to see our maintenance projects, you can click on the major maintenance projects, and a different window will open up with these tan or brown symbols, which are represent all the maintenance projects that we have ongoing in the county right now. And so again, if you like to know what your Harris County Flood Control District tax dollars are going towards, or what activities we have going on, this is a really easy way to see where we're working and what we're working on across the county. And we do keep this updated. And just by looking at the number of symbols on the map, we do have quite a few projects going on all across Harris County. Where it is a very busy time. George mentioned that we're in the midst of executing a $2.5 billion bond program that was approved back in August 2018. So we're working on year 3 of that effort, and we'll be working several more years on it. But we're definitely have a lot of work happening all across the county. And then we do keep some statistics that we get asked a lot about, what we've been doing since Hurricane Harvey, projects that we have the number of bond projects that we have active or ongoing, our community engagement meetings, and the status of our home buyout program. So just some general information. I'd like to make people aware that we put everything that we do on our website, and just to help you navigate and find it. So if you were to click on Cypress Creek Watershed, I went ahead and clicked it just so I would make sure that it worked. You will see along the left-hand side, here's a list of all of the active projects that we have going on in the Cypress Creek watershed right now. So you can, if you want to know about our extreme rainfall event swale project that we just completed last month, or if you want to know about our right-of-way acquisition project that we have going on, and so on and so forth, all the projects are listed along the side, and you can click on any one of those to get additional information. I want to point out that we created a Cypress Creek year-end 2020 summary of everything we've done in the watershed. You can click on that icon, and this document, I was scrolling down, this document will open up. It's a PDF file so that anyone can download it and print it out and look at it. But we did our best to provide a brief summary. I know the document is 6 pages, but we tried to do our best to provide a brief summary of all the different activities the flood control district did in the year 2020 or last year. And so if you're interested, you can download this and read it at your leisure. And it gives just a brief update on all of our projects, all of our major projects that we have going on in the Cypress Creek watershed. One of the things that we get asked a lot about is where have we purchased property? And in the Cypress Creek watershed last year, we acquired 56 individual tracts of land, totaling around 284 acres of property that we acquired last year. We're in the process of acquiring more property in this year. And the purpose of all these properties that we're acquiring is twofold. One is either floodplain preservation, where we buy a piece of property and then the flood control district owns it forever and it can never be developed. There have been a few parcels that we've been able to acquire that some of my contacts in the Cypress Creek community have mentioned to me that people have been worried about for years that would become a development. And we were able to acquire those properties, and now they won't ever be developed. The second purpose of these acquisitions would be for future stormwater detention basins. And so in order to build stormwater detention basins, which is one of the primary ways we reduce flooding risks all over the county, we have to have property. So part of our acquisitions are going to be used for future stormwater detention basins. So we listed, we didn't give exact addresses, but we listed about the street or location and the acreage that was acquired. Some of these acquisitions are quite small, and they involve single lots or vacant lots in neighborhoods where we're working on a home buyout program. So anyhow, I just wanted to make sure you are aware of this document and that my staff worked really hard on getting this put together, and you can view it at your leisure. Again, same with Little Cypress Creek. If you want to know what's going on in the Little Cypress Creek watershed, it has its own page as well with all the different projects that we have going on. Here's a map. Oops, sometimes it zooms in if you're not careful how you move your mouse. And it shows the location of all the different projects that we have going on in the Little Cypress Creek watershed. And then there's a page down here, a link down here for the Longwood. There's quite a few folks that have reached out to me and my staff about what's going on in the Longwood neighborhood along the Longwood golf course. And so we have a separate page set up just for Longwood for people to follow and keep up with, which includes frequently asked questions that were just updated last week, actually updated February 3rd. So if people are interested, people listening are interested on that, this is where we continuously update what's going on in that particular situation. So I'm going to just go through a couple questions because there's so many coming in. I'm going to get behind. The first question that came in was the status of the Raveno development as a flood detention area. There is we have been working with the Cypress Forest Public Utility District, and that page on our website is here under the Champions Stormwater Detention Basin. You can click on that and see anything you want to see that we've made available on that particular project. And the status is that the Flood Control District is still working on trying to come up with a win-win situation with the Cypress Forest Public Utility District on the future of the Raveno Country Club. The country club, the clubhouse, the pool, the parking lot, the tennis courts, portions of the driving range, those are owned by the flood control district, and the owner that ran the golf course and the country club, it has now vacated the facility. So it is currently being unused, but we've secured the facility. We've worked with Harris County Constable Precinct 4 to increase patrols of the area, and we have we've taken over the maintenance of the utilities of that facility. The Cypress Forest Public Utility District is working on, they own the golf course area, the majority of the acreage. And I don't want to speak for them because I cannot speak for them, but I know that they're working on how to maintain the golf course in the interim while we try to strike a deal on what the future of the Ravenel Country Club is, and if and when the flood control district and the public utility district can agree on a plan forward and possibly a project in that area. So that's the latest and greatest on that. We hope to have some type of resolution this year. So the next one is flood control's focus to acquire land for new detention is great. Would it also be cost effective and timely to improve existing detention? Could be incented for those that are privately owned. The most of the detention basins, and I'll share an exhibit that we made internally that shows all of the detention basins in the Cypress Creek watershed. And these are basins that are maintained by the flood control district. There could be other detention basins that are privately owned, but these basins that are outlined here are maintained by the Harris County Flood Control District. And since all of the stormwater detention basins in Harris County drain by gravity, except for a small number that are pumped dry, they're generally as deep as they can get. The most folks that build a stormwater detention basin build them as deep as possible that will be drained by gravity so that they maximize the use of the property for detention, and then minimize the amount of property used for detention and maximize the amount of property used for whatever they're developing. So we're unaware of any particular stormwater detention basins that could be made deeper, but if there are some that we don't know about, we can certainly explore that. And so and then as far as incentives, the flood control district doesn't generally get into providing incentives. That's a different type of program that I'm not aware of, but if I can always ask the question about that. Next question, can I elaborate on current negotiations with Longwood, and can I elaborate on potential benefits to flood risk reduction and types of improvements that would be completed? So again, the latest and greatest information about Longwood is located on our webpage, and I'm committed to, and my staff are committed to keep the latest and greatest information posted on that webpage. And the reason that we do that, and sometimes I've heard some frustration from a couple of folks that live out there that we won't give them a direct answer. We tell them that we want everything in writing, and we tell them we're going to put everything on our website. And the reason for that is we want a clear, consistent message out to residents. We don't like playing the telephone game, because eventually the message gets garbled or changed, or there's someone's flavor or different interpretation gets added. And so we like to have everything in writing, and then we like to respond to everything in writing so that there's one clear, concise message about what we're doing on this project and in our other projects. So as far as negotiations, we're not really doing anything. As far as we know, everything's at a standstill in terms of dealing with the Longwood Golf Course and that project. We haven't heard. My staff did present some information. We were invited to a meeting that Longwood set up, and we presented the same information that we presented at an earlier community meeting at the request of Longwood. But that's where things stand. As far as I know, and I would know, there's nothing else going on right now. And then the potential benefits for flood risk reduction along that property, and this is not something that's not been discussed with the community out there, is that portions of that property would be used for to increase or create new stormwater detention capacity in that area. And there is a existing stormwater detention basin here. And part of the plan would be to use this portion of the golf course to expand the existing stormwater detention basin and then create new stormwater detention basin on the south or the west side of Little Cypress Creek in this area. And then possibly some improvements to the channel. Although I've told my staff that I would like to maintain as much as of the wooded or forested corridor as possible if we do a project in this area. So and again, all this information and some renderings are available on our website if you want to look and see what we're planning on doing. The next question, what thoughts do you have about giving existing detention owners an incentive to let flood control dig out? So again, I don't think we can legally do an incentive program, but we're willing to partner with folks that if there's a private detention basin and they think that there can be some more storage volume, we could possibly work for them to partner to do a project to expand the volume of that detention basin. They'd have to reach out for us and we'd handle that on a case-by-case basis. Cypress Falls under City of Houston ETJ. For our elected officials, how do we exit the ETJ so we can have responsible zoning and help mitigate flooding and protect residential aesthetics? Hook 'em. So that must be a non-Aggie fan right there. So I don't know the answer to that, and so I would have to defer that to someone that's more familiar with the area of law that involves either removing or adding in areas in an extraterritorial jurisdiction. So I'm a drainage guy and I want to stick to my level of knowledge. So I can't answer that question. The Baker study identified basin alternatives 4, 5, and 6, totaling 7,572 acre feet. The study, now a year old, noted there's no flood control activity regarding these opportunities. What's their current status? That's a good question. What we're doing right now is we've taken the Baker study, and what we've done with that is we've have acquired some properties that were recommended in the Baker study, but not all of them, and we continue to work to acquire more property. In the meantime, we've also hired a consultant to take the Baker study and turn it into what I call a roadmap for future flood damage reduction projects in the Cypress Creek watershed. And that consultant's been working very hard last year and this year. And we hope to have a draft of their plan ready for review this month for internal flood control district review. And then hopefully in April, we're going to present it to the public and have a couple of community engagement meetings to present the results of that plan to the public for the public's feedback. You can let us know if you like it, if you don't like it, what we should change, what we got right, what we got wrong, and so on and so forth. And once we finalize it, after we have the community engagement, then the plan is to move forward with what's recommended in that plan and complete the projects that are recommended. So you will see that study, although it was completed almost a year ago, we've been taking its recommendations and working forward to come up with a plan that we feel we can be successful with. And so just we will notify folks. We'll be sure to let Mr. Lieb know about it so he can share it with y'all when it's available. And there's more to come. So we haven't been sitting around not doing anything. We've been working. It's just been a lot of the office work. So what's taking so long to finish Pilat Gully? It's still fenced off with no work being done. It's been this way for more than 4 months. The Pilat Gully project is complete. The construction that we plan to do is complete. The project took a little longer than we thought because what ended up happening is when the contractor was working on the project, there was some additional damage, some additional erosion damage that was found. So we actually had to add more work to that contract and let the contractor fix that. So that added a little bit more time. Additionally, what's going on now is it's fenced off while we plan to establish turf on the site. So when we do, after we finish a project, we come through and do a turf establishment to try to prevent erosion from occurring on the land that was just disturbed. And then we have, unfortunately, what we have to do is we have to wait. The Pilat Gully project was in this general area by Vintage Preserve Parkway. What we have in Commissioner Cagle's Park, Kickerell Mission Preserve, what we have to do is we have to wait 1 year for our warranty period with the contractor to expire. All of our projects come with a warranty period that generally lasts 1 year. And during that 1 year period, if anything on the project breaks or needs to be fixed, the contractor is obligated to make those repairs. And then when that warranty period expires, we're going to come back and replant all the trees along that corridor. So that's what's going. And we did put a notice of that on the Pilat Gully project website. You may not have looked at it because not a lot of people look at our website, but hopefully more will after today. And that's what's going on with that project. But the project is complete. What are the plans for Ravenel? I talked about that already. What is the status of flood control in Houston Stronger? Counter proposals regarding the Corps of Engineers inclusion of the Buffalo Bayou interim report. We've received all of your emails, Mike. Trust me, we've received them, we've read them. My staff had a meeting with the Corps of Engineers. Today's Thursday. They met with them on Tuesday or yesterday, I can't remember, to talk about the next steps of the Buffalo Bayou and tributaries resiliency study. It appears, I can't guarantee anything because the Corps of Engineers is in charge of that project, but it appears that the study time is going to be extended to do a little bit more community engagement and a little more analysis. So we are in talks with the Corps about how that could possibly move forward. And that's about all I know about that. We are not, we're letting folks build their counter proposals as necessary, but we are the non-federal sponsor of that project. So we're going to remain a neutral party in terms of the proposals being put together by your group and others. The question about improving existing had to do with keeping them clean. Lots of silt builds up. There's no required maintenance program for privately owned detention. Will flood control work with engineering to create a program like that? And the deepening of the west end of Marshall Lake. I don't believe there are any plans to deepen Marshall Lake at all. The lake is going to stay as it is. I don't know if there's any benefit to doing that, and I don't know exactly how we would do that. And plus, I don't know if it would disturb the existing situation at Marshall Lake. In terms of making folks private detention basins maintain their basin, I will have to verify with Harris County permits what the program is on inspecting and the maintenance of those basins. I honestly don't know off the top of my head, but Claudette, of course, you know how to reach me by phone or by email, and you can always remind me to follow up on that. I'm happy to get you an answer, but I don't know the answer to that question, but I know who to ask, and I can get you an answer. Who would I reach out to at flood control about expanding private? Travis, you can reach out to me, and Bobby can make sure that you have my contact information, and you can just email me or call me, and we can talk. Is adequate funding still available to perform the construction of all the detention projects scheduled, as well as those that arise like Ravenel? The concern here is much of the funding has been exhausting purchasing real estate. There is a dedicated, to answer the last part first, there's a dedicated flood control district bond project for right-of-way acquisition. It started out with $100 million of funding through the bond program, and that money is set aside strictly for right-of-way acquisition. You are correct that we do not have all the funding sources identified to build all of the detention basins that we're going to recommend when our report comes out in a few months. However, part of our report is to identify how we will pursue funding, whether it be for just through our local ad valorem tax intake that we get every single year, or grant opportunities through the state of Texas or the federal government. So some of our projects are not, the funding has not been identified yet. That's a true statement. but we actively are working on identifying funding for each of those projects, and they'll all be a case-by-case basis. What about the missing fence in Longwood where the flood control district work was completed a while ago? I'm not aware of the missing fence in Longwood, so I'll have to follow up on that. If you want to email me, I can give my email address at the end of the presentation, and you can email me, and I'll have the right staff follow up with you on that question. If flood control acquires a portion of Longwood to be converted, how long would that project last? Well, that's a good question. So generally, our project life cycle, excuse me, our project life cycle typically lasts several years. We generally do a feasibility study first, then we do preliminary engineering, and then we do final design, and then we build the project. The feasibility study for the Longwood is already done. Preliminary engineering would have to start. That generally takes 9 to 12 months. Final design generally takes 9 to 12 months. So let's just say 2 years. And then construction can last anywhere from less than a year to multiple years, depending on the size of the project. So in general, if we were to if everything magically poof worked out and we were to start a project near the Longwood Golf Course, it would probably a couple years before construction would begin, and then at least probably 1 year of construction. So probably shortest time frame would be a 3-year from start to finish, and then it could extend out longer than that depending on the size of the project. I just don't know the answer because I don't know what project we'd be building. The state has emitted 45 over Cypress Creek's a problem-related flood drainage. They funded and planned new construction of the bridge. That said, the county can take the initiative and dig. Okay, so the 45 at Cypress Creek, we've been asked about that quite a bit. I don't want to speak for TxDOT that they've admitted anything about this topic. You'd have to get a statement from them. But the Texas Department of Transportation does have a plan to replace the southbound frontage road at I-45. That project is in design by the Texas Department of Transportation. So at Cypress Creek, there's a northbound frontage road, and then of course the main lanes, and then the southbound frontage road. And the state does plan to replace, totally reconstruct the southbound frontage road at Cypress Creek. And we've had my staff and TxDOT staff meet out at the site, and we've agreed to disagree with folks that there is debris and buildup underneath the bridge. There is some debris that gets caught up underneath the bridge naturally because there are bridge columns, and when during storm events there are the trees and trash that gets caught up underneath there. But there's nothing underneath there that's like constitutes a true blockage of the floodplain underneath the I-45 bridge. And TxDOT did say that they were going to remove some silt that's inside their right of way. Legally, the flood control district is not allowed to work inside the state right of way. It's an issue about property rights. But I believe that the TxDOT, last time I talked to them, their maintenance division was going to do some type of work underneath here, but I can't verify that that's been done or not been done. But we've had staff underneath there multiple times, and there's not any kind of major blockage. If there was a major blockage at this bridge or any bridge over one of our creeks that we're responsible for, we would either work to get that removed, or we would work with the other agency to get that removed. The next question, I heard Triumph Golf is selling Cypress Lakes Golf Course. I'm not aware of Triumph, what they're selling and what they're not selling, and I'm not exactly sure where Cypress Lakes is. I can look into that and get back to you, but I'd have to look and see where Cypress Lakes Golf Course is, and if it's on Little Cypress Creek or on regular Cypress Creek. So I'm Marianne, I don't know the answer to that particular question, but you can follow up with me. Is there an estimate on how much more rain can be handled now versus Harvey? How much more rain do we expect we can handle in 3 years? Well, I get asked this question a lot. The flood control district, we remain consistent in our message that if there is another Hurricane Harvey, we will experience massive flooding. That the amount of rain that fell during Hurricane Harvey is not something that engineers designed for. It'd be similar to designing the Katy Freeway inside a residential neighborhood. We don't design our drainage infrastructure for something that massive, just because it's so rare and hopefully, fingers crossed, a once in our lifetime type of event. I do not have an overall estimate of the drainage level service improvements between now and Hurricane Harvey. I will tell you that we have spent, I don't know the exact amount of money, but tens of millions of dollars removing silt and sediment and repairing various channels all across the Cypress Creek watershed. And can I say that the Cypress Creek watershed overall is in better shape than before Hurricane Harvey? The answer to that question I can say is yes. We continue to make more progress on projects. In fact, the Flood Control District has a $15 million construction project out for bid right now to do even more repairs and maintenance work on drainage infrastructure all across the Cypress Creek watershed. And if you want, again, I try to tell folks that we put everything on our website, and that project is right here. And I believe, if I remember correctly, I should have checked before this meeting, that we actually have a map of where the $15 million is going to go first. We have a timeline. We do. So we have an image of showing where the projects, where we're going to be working with this new construction package that's going out for bid right now as we speak, and then a timeline of our project. So you can, if you're interested in seeing what we're doing and how we're spending your tax money, it's available here on this website. And again, we do try to keep all this up to date as much as possible. So that answers that question. And then I had another person send me some questions, and I just wanted to be able to touch on them really briefly, since there's no other open questions right now in the Q&A. We've been asked a lot about how the Flood Control District acquires property, and in that some of this has been coming up in Ravenel discussions, some of it has been come up in Longwood discussions, and some of it comes up in other projects that we're doing up and down the Cypress Creek watershed. And the Harris County Flood Control District does not acquire property. We actually work through the Harris County Real Property Division, which is under the Office of the County Engineer. The Office of the County Engineer is inside the Harris County structure. It's confusing, but believe it or not, the Flood Control District is a separate governmental agency from Harris County. We report to Commissioner's Court, but we are a separate agency. And so we actually use the Office of the County Engineer's resource, which is the Real Property Division, to acquire property for us. And so does the Toll Road Authority, and so does the County Engineer's Office. And so we don't get involved in appraisals. We don't get involved in any of those types of things. So all of our, when we acquire rights of way, we have to get an appraisal done. And those are completed by licensed appraisers in the state of Texas. And they're the ones that the appraisers are the ones that determine the value of the property and the highest and best use of the property, and so on and so forth. And there's a very strict set of rules and laws that are set out that they have to follow. So the Flood Control District doesn't get involved in that. We just receive a product from the appraisers and the Harris County Real Property Division. And then the other question is the money meant to help only homeowners, or is it meant to help businesses, or both? The Flood Control District, we don't, when we build our projects, we try to do projects that help the most people. Sometimes we measure the benefits of our project as the number of homes that are taken out of the floodplain or had their flood risk reduced. But sometimes we look at it just as the amount of structures or the amount of real estate that has had its flood risk reduced. And of course, we do want to protect homeowners, but we also want our projects to protect business owners and everything in between. So it's not the Flood Control District only wants to protect homeowners. We want to protect people, and we want to protect property, and we want to do projects that have the most benefit for the dollars that we're spending. So that's how we think about it. And then the other question that I had that was sent to me and that I hear a lot, do we prioritize purchasing land in areas that are welcoming of flood mitigation, in or do we just, I guess the question they're asking is, if people don't want us there, will we still move forward with the project? And typically, uh, we have people, we work in areas that have a high instance of flooding, and people welcome us coming to do a project. And from time to time, people don't want us to do a project. And from time to time, we try to work out a way to meet in the middle. But if a neighborhood decides that they don't want a flood control project, and they just seriously just want us to leave, we would try to honor that, and we would try to find a way to get that in writing or codify it, so that the next time it floods and there's flooding in that particular area, the flood control district can just have some backup saying that we tried, but everyone wanted us to not do a project, and people were okay living with that certain risk of flooding. Some people are okay living with a certain risk of flooding, and some people aren't. And of course, if we do have some type of way to document that people don't want us to do a project, we certainly have other projects that need funding, and we can deploy the funds in other places. There's definitely not a shortage of need for our drainage projects in Harris County. And then a couple more questions came through, more about Longwood. If negotiations and don't result in a deal, what are the odds that flood control will condemn the property to obtain the property that way? Is that a possibility? The flood control district does have the ability to exercise eminent domain to acquire property, and we have done that in the past. It's generally our last resort. We don't like to use that power. We like to try to negotiate a deal, but no decision has been made if the Longwood HOA situation doesn't work out. And I know y'all don't like the answer to that question, but it's the truth. We haven't made a decision one way or the other if those negotiations don't work out. And let's see, uh, same question from a different person, anonymous attendee. And it goes into, as a follow-up to property acquisition, Longwood has asked that they remove the existing deed restriction. Wouldn't this just be a bailout of the golf club, a private company, at the expense of Harris County taxpayers? And that's a good question. And in the flood control district, in regards to that question, we've been accused by a lot of people that we're working behind the scenes, and we're in triumphs in our pocket, or we're in their pocket, whatever the saying is. And I understand people's frustration, and I understand people like to say things in the heat of the moment. I try to remain very neutral and non-emotional, and try to just get to the end state to solve a problem. But I can assure everyone listening that the flood control district is in no way in any type of secret negotiations with anybody anywhere in the county. I personally take my responsibility as a licensed professional engineer in the state of Texas very seriously, and I don't even let people buy me a cup of coffee. I've been offered everything from a cup of coffee to a trip out of the country to go hunting, and I turn everything down. I don't. My job and my passion and what I like to do is solve drainage problems, and it's all I've done for the past almost 21 years now. And I understand there's some heated emotions, and people think that we're out to get them and make their houses lose value, or make their houses gain value, or make this guy rich or make this guy not rich. That's simply not the case. We're trying to build projects to help people not flood during the next rainfall event. And it's as simple as that. And so I can't speak to any of these negotiations between the Longwood HOA and the golf club. That's their business, not our business. And but in the end, the flood control district just really wants to build projects. That's the bottom line. And let's see here. What's the definition of structure? That's a good question. So when we are doing our preliminary engineering reports for all of our projects, we have a data layer provided by the Harris County Appraisal District, or HCAD, that has the building footprint of every building inside Harris County. And we're able to use that data to do an analysis to help quantify the benefit of the different projects that we do. So for example, if we do a capital improvement project that is building a new stormwater detention basin, we can run computer models that tell us how the extent of the floodplain will change in the existing condition versus the condition with a stormwater detention basin in place. And we can do an analysis that shows us what structures, whether they're houses, warehouses, strip centers, schools, hospitals, whatever, have their risk of flooding reduced. So when I say structures, we do engineering and geographic information system analysis based on building footprint data that we get from HCAD. How do we inspect the full length of Cypress or Little Cypress Creek for blockage? So there's different ways that we inspect the creeks for blockages. Some of it is relying on you, citizens that live in the neighborhoods or drive over the bridges over those channels. And if they see something, we encourage people to report here on our website. You can contact us at the very top, or you can enter a service request. And if you see something like that's in the channel, like a tree fell in, or there's a bunch of shopping carts or something like that, you can enter a service request and we'll take care of it. We also have inspectors that go up and down the channels on a rotating schedule. It's not every single year because we have 2,500 miles of channel that we're responsible for, so we can't cover everything in 1 year. But we do inspect. It's generally a 3-year rotation that we inspect all of our channels and all of our infrastructure. And we have a running photographic database of all of our infrastructure that we keep. And then if there's enough water, we can also run airboats up and down those creeks. We do run airboats up and down Buffalo Bayou, Greens Bayou, and Clear Creek. And then if the water's high enough, we can run airboats up and down Cypress Creek. I don't know if it's being recorded. And there's Bob Jackson. So if the structure value include land value, we use the value of the structure that's provided by the Harris County Appraisal District. So we don't necessarily include the land value. The land value is obviously included by appraisers when we get appraisals done on property. But when we're looking at the benefit of a flood damage reduction benefit of our projects, we typically look at the structure value that's provided by the Harris County Appraisal District. And then Jim, hey Jim, how significant is the Little Cypress Creek Frontier project in the reduction of flooding further down on Cypress Creek? That's a good question. The Little Cypress Creek Frontier program is a series of projects that are all outlined on our website. And there is once the entire Little Cypress Creek Frontier program is built out and realized, there will be a flood damage reduction component to Big Cypress Creek downstream of where Little Cypress Creek enters Cypress Creek. So the confluence of Little Cypress Creek and Cypress Creek is near, this is Eldridge, and it's in this location. This is where they come together. So the flood damage reduction benefit would be downstream or east of where Little Cypress Creek comes into Cypress Creek, not upstream. Okay, Bobby, how am I doing on time?
You're great. We're coming up on, well, it's 12:21, so we generally wrap these things up within an hour. I've got a couple questions for you, Matt, if you don't mind. We had one that came into the office that was asking about homes that unnecessarily have flooded in subdivisions, and that reminded me of the Swales project we got a presentation on. I wonder if you could touch on the Swales projects and some of the subdivisions.
Sure. So the Swales project that we did was actually a request by Paul Eschenfelder. He knew that the flood control district completed a similar project down in Westbury, in the Brays Bayou watershed along a channel called Willow Waterhole Bayou. And the reason why we're doing it, or why we did the project, is that subdivisions that were designed and built in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and early 90s were built without what us engineers call an extreme event pathway. In newer subdivisions, the streets are actually designed and engineered for when heavy rain falls, the water is channeled through the streets out of the subdivision to a receiving channel, whether it's Spring Creek or Cypress Creek or wherever. But older subdivisions were not designed in that way. And so what we did in Westbury, which we publicized and Paul heard about, is there were some homes that were severe repetitive losses. Some of them have flooded over 10 times. We were able to acquire the homes. We demolished the homes, and we built an illustration of what we built is shown on my screen. It's basically a place to let the water out of the neighborhood faster instead of ponding up in a street and getting into people's homes. And we've done this a few other places in the county, and it's been really successful. We did one in Horsepen Bayou on the west side of town near Addicks Reservoir. And we did another one on Buffalo Bayou near Beltway 8. And that one has also been really successful. In fact, the neighbors send me videos every time it rains. They love it so much. They see all the water going out of their neighborhood instead of through this house that used to be there. So we asked, I tasked some of my staff with identifying candidates, places where we can build these swales in some neighborhoods. And my staff went out and did an evaluation, and they completed 6 of them in December or maybe early January. So the whole point of that project is in those neighborhoods where we built those swales, they're the lowest point, the bottom of the bathtub. When rain falls, when there's a very intense rainfall and water ponds up in the streets, these swales allow the water to exit the neighborhood where a house used to be, as opposed to building up higher and higher in the streets and in people's front yards and possibly into their homes.
Thank you. My last question for you, Matt, is can you give us a quick update on the TC Jester detention project?
Sure. So the TC Jester project is also listed on here. I'm going to find it. Here we go. So there's actually 2 TC Jester stormwater detention basins. One is located east of TC Jester, and one is located west of TC Jester, both on the south side of Cypress Wood Drive. So the project, the smaller parcel is on the west side of TC Jester. And if you drive by there, you'll notice that we do have a contractor out there removing material and what we call an excavation and removal contract. That's where we allow a contractor who wants the dirt, wants the material, to excavate the material in an area that we define for the contractor. So we have a contractor out there now. They've done a limited amount of vegetated clearing, and they're removing material out of this area for a future. And when they're done, the flood control district will come back and finalize the project and make it a fully functional stormwater detention basin. On the east side of TC Jester, we're this close to wrapping up the preliminary engineering report. We should have a community engagement meeting in March or April, or maybe even sooner, I'm not sure, to present the alternatives that we've come up with for a new stormwater detention basin in this area. And then we have a grant application in at the state of Texas for a community, it's up in Austin at the GLO for a community development block grant to fund a portion of the construction of this project. And we hope to hear back about that. I think in March is when where we should hear back from the state and if we are awarded the grant for the construction of this project. So we are making progress out here in developing and constructing new stormwater detention in this location. And the other thing about these 2 locations, they happen to be home to several trails by off-road mountain bike folks. And my staff are working with the leadership of those mountain bike folks to try to legitimize what they've done on the flood control district property. The trails out there are unpermitted trails and built without anyone's permission. And some of those trails are going to be destroyed as part of our project. And we're working through that with those groups because those folks are very unhappy, but we've tried to stress them that they've been living on borrowed time on using our property for an unauthorized purpose. So.
Very good. Thanks, Matt.
Sure.
So circling back, please, when the roadmap plan is released and ready for public consumption, please notify my office and we will advertise that. And we will also advertise any public engagement meetings that you schedule.
Okay.
So as we've got over 100 people on the call today, so clearly flooding continues to be a major interest in the Cypress Creek community for good reason, and I hope it stays that way. Travis, I will get you Matt's information and you can contact Matt. And the third, yes, this is being recorded, and with Matt's permission, we will post this presentation on YouTube. And then we will send that link out to everybody who registered today.
Sure. And I can type up my email address. I might regret doing this because sometimes I get some not so nice emails, but you know what? I can take it. So here we go. There's my email address. Hopefully everyone can see that. And the folks that wanted to reach out to me with a specific question, you can send me an email and I'll try to respond in a day or two.
Yep. And if any of you lose that, call the chamber, we'll provide it to you. Okay, this is the mea culpa portion of our project. My handlers informed me that I misintroduced several of our elected officials. So my apologies. It is U.S. Senator John Cornyn, not U.S. Representative. And it is U.S. Representative Lizzie Fletcher, not state representative. So again, I apologize for the screw up. Welcome to my world. So that being said, Matt, thank you very, very much. And to our sponsors, Cypress Creek Stop the Flooding, thank you very, very much. This is always good. And we'll continue to work on mitigating flooding in the Cypress Creek watershed. So everybody have a good day. Thanks for coming. And we'll see you next month.